Shall we see if there's anybody in? I suppose we're here to talk about something rather important, something you've been looking forward to, I will wager. The clans. One of the most exciting things about becoming a Cainite is finding out a little about each of the families of blood. I think you will agree. Whether Bruja, Gangrel, Nosferatu, Malkavian, Toreador, Ventru, Thinblood, Tremere, Kaitif, everyone wants to know a little about the opposition. Everyone wishes to know a little about their family. Well, one of these nights we will go into great detail on each of the clans, but tonight we will talk on the subject of all of them. All of the Camarilla and Anarch clans, anyway. I do not wish to overburden you with information that you will not retain. We may touch on the rest. Let us talk of Clan Bruja. Seems appropriate. The Bruja. Where to start with them? Are they, as many believe, uncontrollable rabble barbarians? Some call them savages, some call them punks or loons, zealots, furores, Prometheans, anarchs. Many, when they assume a clan belongs to the anarchs, assume that clan must be the Bruja, and in a self-fulfilling prophecy it appears to have been the case in recent years. Let us dial back to the start with Clan Bruja. Clan Bruja were the clan of philosopher kings. If you trace back their roots, they were princes, but they were also thinkers. They were the clan most likely to adapt to mortal changes. Where other clans were often left in the dust of mortal progression, the Bruja latched onto those kind like ticks, and they rode them to success. They even sometimes came up with revolutionary new ways that the mortals adopted. I am told, although I cannot claim the accuracy of this statement, that the Bruja were instrumental in the Bolshevik revolution. It's a grand claim. But what is known is the Bruja were very much responsible for some of the worst decadences of Carthage. Yes, those philosopher kings did dabble in the infernal, in the human sacrifice, anything to grant them a little more wisdom, a little more power, and so slowly they lost their humanity. And on the subject of their humanity, those Bruja love to claim that they are the most human, most mortal of all kindred. Or at least they used to say this before the Thinbloods grew in great number. But their belief is the reason they're so prone to anger, so prone to frenzy, is because they still possess a spark of life in their heart. This is not some biological thing, it's a spiritual thing. They believe that they are more alive than any other Cainite, which is why they can be so easily pushed into emotion. They still know what it feels like to truly love, to truly anger, to truly desire something other than blood. Maybe they are right. Maybe that is their curse, although they will call it a strength. Carthage, of course, fell to Rome. Rome was backed by the Ventru, who we will get onto. And ever since Carthage, the Bruja have been a disappointment. They try to emulate their greatest successes, their greatest progressions. They often fall to frenzy and embarrassment. They were still considered a high clan in the Dark Ages, but this was tenuous, especially when the Anarch Revolt occurred, and many of those Anarchs happened to be Bruja. Again, one of their attempts to progress our society was just by burning it. Do not believe that I am merely disparaging the Bruja. I will disparage most clans in this little lesson, and the Bruja have certain traits that are admirable. Why? They often embrace the most passionate, the thinkers, the radicals of mortality. This can backfire as often as it goes well, but when it does go well, the Bruja are a force to be reckoned with. They field some of the greatest princes, the greatest minds among our kind, because they target those mortals You have a desperate desire to succeed. Come the 20th century, they were still Camarilla clan, but notable members of that clan, well, they drifted. Some drifted to the Sabbat, some drifted to the Anarchs. Ostensibly, the clan remained Camarilla. Members such as Theo Bell, who is no doubt a source for a lesson all of its own, upheld the Camarilla flag. He was an Archon. He defended Camarilla domains. He burned countless Sabbat out of theirs, all on behalf of the Camarilla, because he believed in the Camarilla. As much as he despised it, he believed it was the best option, at least until recent nights. You see, the Brujah, for all their passion, all their fury, they bent and they bent and they bent, and eventually they broke. Eventually they snapped. In a convocation in Prague, the last few years, I was not there, but the shot heard around the world for Kindred was when Theo Bell placed his shotgun beneath the jaw of Hardestadt of Clan Ventru and pulled the trigger. Not once but twice, I am sure, just to make sure. Those Ventru are hardy. I have to respect the Brujah for this, because the Brujah celebrated Theo Bell as one. When Theo Bell said, to use the vernacular, fuck the Camarilla, the rest of the Brujah followed suit, by and large. Do not think that they are all just mindless rabble. That is how the Brujah often end up underestimated, and indeed how to easily provoke a Brujah if that is your game. They are often great minds, great thinkers, and great doers. They are activists. If you want something done, speak to Clan Brujah. If you want to know why the Kine are behaving as they are, speak to Clan Brujah. They may not have their eyes on the information services and networks. They may not be bedded into the internet. They may not be the best spies, but they know the zeitgeist. They understand emotion. And speaking of emotion or emotional extremes, let us talk about Clan Malkavian. Clan Malkavian is a strange one. It is strange how they have existed for as long as they have, I'm sure you will agree, because Malkavians are, at least were, considered almost uniformly insane. How does a clan of insane vampires exist? Well, I think the insanity is somewhat overblown. You see, insanity, until very recently, was the common attribution for anything doctors did not understand. If you suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, you were insane. If you were giddy with sexual excitement, you were insane. If you had uncanny wisdom in a time when everyone else was bashing rocks together, you were insane. So what does that make the Malkavians? They can't all be mad. Well, if you tie it to the mythos of our kind, blood drinkers were often considered insane. Seers and soothsayers, doomsayers and the like were all considered insane. The lunatics, the Clan of the Moon, Clan Malkavian, from the time Malkav embraced his first child, they were considered mad, but they were the ones with the wisdom. They knew the way the world would turn. They foresaw the great portents, the great omens, and the great disasters. They guided their allies past them, or through them, but they guided them to survival. Often the Malkavians lost many number in this. Often they lost great faith and were attacked for saying things no one wished to hear. All throughout the era of Rome, Great Rome, when they were the advisors to Clan Ventru, through to the Dark Ages where they were jesters in the courts of nobler princes, they were ridiculed, they were not taken seriously until it became time where they had to be taken seriously. Of course, it is very easy to disparage someone with a mental illness. Very easy to disparage someone who appears different to the rest of all Canaanites. And one could say the discrimination existing from the 19th and 20th centuries really harmed Clan Malkavian's credibility. I would even go so far as to say many Malkavians embraced the ridicule. They played up their infirmity. But they were wise, and they were linked by blood, by mind, by founder. Just 10 years ago, they were in Jerusalem. They were communing with, if not their clan founder, an ancient member of their clan. And that is my hypothesis. And they each drank of his blood, and they each learned something. They each gained an uncanny wisdom, foresight, something that allowed them to protect domains from the Second Inquisition and the Sabbat purges before the Sabbat headed east. The Malkavians acted as advisors unparalleled to the Camarilla. So it is no wonder that they still hold honoured position there, for despite their unreliability in the main, they are through and through companions to the Ventru, the Toreador, and the Tremere, and Nosferatu. Nosferatu. Everyone has an image in their mind when they say Nosferatu, but it's always of a monster. And that is what everyone would want you to think. Every member of Clan Nosferatu wishes to be underestimated in this way. Think of them as a hideous beast that lives in the sewer, that speaks to rats. But that plays into the Nosferatu's manipulative hands, because the Nosferatu have a reputation. They have a reputation of being the clan to survive. They are the clan that survives the scourge of the world, whether it be flame, plague, or inquisition. The Nosferatu will always survive. Their greatest enemy comes from within their own number, the so-called Niktuku, elders of their clan that wish to cannibalize all other members of the clan of the Hidden. The Nosferatu persist. They continue to survive, despite all expectation that they should be the ones to fall. After all, they are the ones with targets on their face. They are the ones who are lacquered in fingernails, or hold open sores all over their faces, or have no nose and long teeth, eyes like beads dripping blood. The Nosferatu are hideous, and yet they survive, because they make themselves invaluable. While the Malkavians are, one could say, fair weather in their reliability, the Nosferatu are constant. Throughout the Dark Ages, they were the finest of spies. Almost every domain had a Nosferatu spy in it, and if it was not a spy for the prince in the domain, it was a spy for another prince elsewhere. Nosferatu very rarely ascend to positions of power among our kind. It is difficult to maintain respect when you look as you do, and indeed, frequenting Elysium can be tricky when you have a face like that. But when it comes to holding and wielding true power, the Nosferatu are on a par with none. If you wish to truly see who is pulling the strings of the Camarilla, you will look to Clan Nosferatu. They know it. They are proud of it. And this is part of the reason I often find them so intolerable, because they will offer you a morsel of advice, and they will ask for payment in return. And you will get your advice, and the advice will be good, but the amount you had to pay was massive, and you will never know how they obtained it. With Theobald's execution of Hardstadt and the Bruja migration to the Anarchs, well, the Gangrel were already there, at least in some number. You see, when the portents of Gehenna came and one of the Gangrel elders said the Camarilla had lied to them all along, they turned nominally independent. Xavier of Clan Gangrel, the great prophet, he encountered a Gangrel so ancient and terrible when he melded with the earth that he stated the Camarilla had long lied about the truth of our kind. And he somehow led a clan with no communication network to march outside the Camarilla. I still don't know how he did it. It is not like they could speak with spirits. It's not like they sent smoke signals or painted on rocks, or maybe that is exactly how they did it. Somehow the Gangrel knew Now is the time. Perhaps it was after years, centuries of misuse, because the gangrel were often used as warlords, often used as shock troops. Indeed, if you look to the Zamitzi holdings in Eastern Europe, they were often used as loyal dogs. They were always used. They were never taken seriously. They were never given credibility. And perhaps the gangrel just grew tired. It was one lie too many. They had been used to fight the Camarilla wars, and this was it. And so while, of course, some gangrel remain in the Camarilla and are considered, as a result, lapdogs rather than wolves, the rest of the clan gangrel turned independent and now declares for the Anarchs. Because according to the Camarilla, there is no independence. You are either Camarilla, Anarch, or Sabbat. Well, we'll see what the Clan of Death thinks about that on another night. The gangrel and the Bruja aligned shoulder to shoulder. That decade or so when they were not, led the Ventru and Toreador to think, well, we can no longer have need to fear an uprising in the Camarilla. When they held the Bruja in the Camarilla and the gangrel were independent, the Camarilla actually felt safe. And now, both of the adjutant clans have joined the Anarchs, and the Ventru are unhappy. The Ventru like to wield total control. They have done since their genesis. The clan of kings is the clan of control, the clan that dominates all. They make the kine love them. They make the kindred respect them. They make their enemies fear them. There is no wonder that the majority of princes across the world are Ventru. No wonder at all. Always have been. And, to do them credit, they often do a fine job. Yes, sometimes, over the course of history, they've embraced patricians. Those emperors, princes, and the like, who take their role because they are aristocrats, not because they are qualified. And this has happened time and time again. But in recent centuries, the Ventru have changed their tact. When they started embracing from the merchant class, shortly after the formation of the Camarilla, they started embedding themselves in actual mortal affairs, mortal politics, mortal influence in industry. Now, these nights, the Ventru hold a tight grip over commerce and industry the world over, both among mortal and their own kind. There is some debate, are the Ventru a wealthier clan, by and large, than the Giovanni of the Clan of Death? Or is there someone else in the middle? Both claim to hold massive amounts of wealth. I suppose it is immaterial. It's not like they ever have piles of cash on a desk that they're going to count against each other. But the point is, the Ventru can do what they want. They can buy what they want, they can buy loyalty, they can buy action. If they want someone to meet final death, they will pay for that to happen. If they want you to work for them for the next 100 years, they will pay for that to happen. They will make you do it with a smile on your face, because you cannot help but love the Ventru. I have a great deal of respect for Clan Ventru, of course. My prince was a Ventru, and he was among the finest of princes. They are fit to rule, and they are the strongest pillar of the Camarilla. Let me tell you, when the Tremere suffered their little implosion recently, none were so relieved as Clan Ventru, for they feared the Tremere were due to rise up and take the sect from them. But, as is often the way among Cainites, the old clan, the Ventru, the establishment, the house won against the houses of Tremere. In these nights, it is likely that when you visit a new domain you will find Ventru in positions of power. I suggest you accept it and move on. They do know what is best for the Camarilla, even if they did lose some of their most famed, notorious Justicars leaders, princes, during the Bruja revolt. We spoke of the Tremere briefly, the clan of warlocks, the clan of usurpers. They are one of a couple of our clans that does not have a progenitor that was created directly by the lineage of Cain. So, as I mentioned in a previous lesson, we have Cain, we have his child there, and we have their 13 child. None of those 13 led to Clan Tremere's genesis. Again, the Tremere genesis is a very convoluted point, so we won't go into it in terrible detail, but we should maintain that the Tremere are not of the original 13, and that is still held against them to this night. They are the Usurpers. They stole their clan right from another clan that they all but annihilated, and while that clan experienced a resurgence in recent years, very interesting events involving the Inconnu, Hunadoara, and the Master of Ravens, I can tell you that. The Tremere are still the dominant force in that little relationship. They came to exist in the Dark Ages. They came to true power when the Camarilla was formed and when they could levy a mass blood sorcerer curse on the Banu Hakim, although rumours say the Banu Hakim allowed it. That is conjecture. They truly flourished when it came to the Renaissance, the Victorian era. But then the 20th century came and the Tremere were on top. The stablest of clans. The most uniform of clans. Why? Because they were a pyramid. With Tremere on top, his council of 7 beneath, and all kinds of magisters, lords, and other such titles beneath them. They had absolute control over their clan members, and they did so by having a great blood ritual between them that ensured loyalty, and yet they condemned the Sabbat for the same. Well, the Tremere, these practitioners of blood magic, thaumaturgy, the ability to boil blood and create flame from nothing, they suffer to a degree, they fracture in these nights. When the pyramid, I will not say collapsed, but splintered, 3 houses rose from the ruins. Tremere, although Tremere himself is reportedly dead. Kana, led by the rebel Kana mentioned earlier. And Goratrix, and I cannot say who leads that house. But Goratrix was a noted rebel of Clan Tremere, responsible for all kinds of foundations, and supposedly responsible for their creation, or at least suggesting the ritual that allowed it. There are many smaller houses too, as you will undoubtedly find in years to come. One could wonder, are the Tremere still a clan, or are they a host of bloodlines? The strange thing, the thing they do not receive enough credit for, is despite their being split, they hold that proverb dear, that old Bedouin phrase, I against my brother and I against the world. They will spend their time bickering among each other, but when it comes to onslaught from beyond, Tremere close ranks. Whether Tremere and the Council of 7 are in charge or not, the Tremere close ranks. But that blood bond no longer exists. From what I understand, the Tremere can no longer bond other Cainites. Something terrible happened when the pyramid fell. The Toreador enjoyed it, though, and the Toreador, who we will speak on next, clan of degenerates, lowlifes, artists, great thinkers, as many of our clans are, passionate kindred. It is, as with many others, to easily stereotype the Toreador as nothing more than hedonists, dilettantes, libertines, vampires who have little else to do other than to sample blood, still revel in the joys of the flesh, and host extravagant parties. Those Toreador exist, and all fairness to them, my respect to them, someone has to keep us entertained, and the Malkavians gave up to jesters motley several hundred years ago. But other Toreador exist too. The greatest among them was Michael of Constantinople. Long has he been fallen, but it was his dream that led to the one chance in the last millennium for Cainites to experience some kind of utopia. A city where all clans were equal, where all offered something to the pursuit of Golconda and enlightenment, and a harmony with the kine was formed. Not since Carthage was something on these lines brewed. And while a new Constantinople, I should say, rises in the place of Istanbul tonight, many of our kind never use the term Istanbul out of reverence for Michael. There are other Toreador like that who wish to repeat the dream. Likewise, there are Toreador that have fallen into complete and utter carnality. Helena, well known. Last I heard she was in Chicago, but that may be a rumour. Dabbles in all kinds of things infernal just to get a sense of what it is to live dangerously as a vampire. I'm sure she has greater reasons than that, but I do not wish to experience them. From my reading of Beckett's Jihad diary, he was forced to eat his own fingers for her pleasure. The Toreador have long been allies of the Ventru, and this may seem strange because both are equally capable of praxis, being prince, holding domains under their sway. And yet, they work together. They're simpatico, and perhaps the reason they are sympathetic to one another is because they recognize that they each offer something that the other does not. The Ventru fixate on rule, but the Toreador are all about the bread and the circuses. After all, if the Ventru is the administrator, someone needs to keep the people from uprising. It's all very well making sure the banks are full of money, but if there's no one there to spend it, the bank collapses. The Toreador have waxed and waned in power and influence, and, like many others, are underestimated. But I recall my first experience with the Toreador, how my eyes were opened to experiences, sensations that Cainites should not be able to feel. Yes, they hold the same sway over emotions as the Brujar and the Ventru, but they can see into someone's soul. They can tell their greatest desire, and then they will make every effort to deliver it. The Toreador are, however, not servants. Like drug dealers, they know exactly what their clientele requires, and they hook them on it. Why? We are getting through these clans at a rate of knots, are we not? The Camarilla consists these nights of Malkavian, Nosferatu, Ventru, Toreador, Tremere. There's rumour that the Banu Hakim, perhaps the ministry, formerly known as the Followers of Set, they underwent a rebrand, may be joining. The Thin Bloods and the Kaitiv, they occupy a strange position, because they exist both in Anarch's movement and the Camarilla. And the Anarchs, while led by the Brujar and Gangrel, at least nominally, many Anarch free states would claim that they have no leader, I would say they house more Kaitif and Thin Bloods than the Camarilla. The Kaitif are the clanless, and the clanless are an odd breed because the clanless are sometimes vampires that just do not know their sire, but they should still manifest the same bane as their sire, the same weakness, the same compulsions, and sometimes they do, but that would make them not Kaitif. On other occasions, they don't. And this is a strange thing. If I were to embrace a child, and I'm not going to, but let's say I was to embrace a mortal, create a child tonight, and abandon that child before it wakes up, will that make a vampire of my clan? Will it make a Kaitif? There is no science behind it, and again, this speaks to some great spirituality, some blood connection between our kind, the strength of the blood, the strength of the bond. What makes a Kaitif a Kaitif? Kaitif are clanless, they are peasants, they are Ronin, one could say. And that gives them a great liberty, because it means they can operate in any domain without having to pay fealty to their descendants or ancestors. They are on their own. And in so doing, they can also wield the powers of many clans without having to claim, this is what my founder decreed. But at the same time, they lack for allies. They want for them. And maybe this is why they cling to the Anarch ship so fiercely in this storm as they are pelted from either side, and the Ventru give the Kaitef great offers. They say, "We will recognise you as a clan in our domain if you do this service for me." But those services never end, because the Ventru know the Kaitef wish for acceptance, and the Kaitef will do anything to get it. And the Thin Bloods are similar. Before we get on to them, I should tell you of something remarkable. Some kindred, some Cainites, believe the Kaitef are a relatively recent phenomenon, but that is certainly not the case. Clanless vampires have existed since we have existed. You could even argue that Cain was Kaitef. Some of the eldest, the Stone Man, a very mysterious Kaitef, believed to be a Methuselah. Mukhtar Bey, the Prince of Cairo, is a Kaitef. There was, until recently, the rumour that the Prince of Sydney, Australia was also Kaitef, but that has proven to be debunked, I believe, to amusing results. The Kaitef are a powerful force that everyone has underestimated, because everyone just disposed of them, discarded them, assumed because they have no clan they have no value. But it is because they have no defined loyalty that they are intensely valuable. It is the Kaitef of our world that will create the new clans in the times to come. Because when their blood grows strong enough, through diablerie, through age, their potency increasing, their child will emulate them. So just think before you mock a Kaitef. If that Kaitef diablerized a 5th or 4th generation vampire, how easy it would be for that Kaitef to imprint a bloodline of his or her own. Now the Thin Bloods are a different story. The Thin Bloods are runoff, they are discharge. They should not be, according to most, but let us face the facts. When I was a neonate, we considered 10th and 11th generation Cainites to be weak, signs of Gehenna, portents of the end times. Surely there should not be this many vampires in the world, we said. And then come the Dark Ages, was the 12th generation of Cainites. No! Surely the end times are coming, it is the apocalypse. Surely Cain and God would not allow this. 12 steps removed. Then come the 20th century, it was the 13th generation, and now we have 14th, sometimes even 15th. I have even heard that when the 16th generation Cainite, the first 16th generation Cainite comes to be, that will be the true sign of Gehenna, and so it goes. Is it really true that they are any more or less than us? Those of us who can claim lineage to an antediluvian? Well, they can, but I don't expect a 16th generation kindred to remember all of the names. The Thin Bloods are an odd case, though. They do have a clan, and they do have their own powers, and this is the most peculiar thing of Thin-Blooded, the Duskborn. They wield an alchemy. They can mix mortal blood. They can mix their own vitae into it, and they can create their own disciplines. So while the Kaitef are over there creating their own bloodlines, the Thin Bloods are creating their own powers. I've heard that some Thin Bloods can even walk in the sun. I've heard that some Thin Bloods can even breed. Are they even vampires, or are they the evolution of vampires? Is it actually the case that the knights of clans Bruhar through to Ventru are gone? That we are on the wane? That the week of nightmares when one of the 13 clans all but fell was just another symptom of our time being nigh? And the Kaitef and the Thin Bloods, as their numbers bolster, as they boom, that they will be the heirs apparent. I think there is a very good chance of that. So before you dismiss Kaitef and Thin Bloods, before you dismiss Anarchs and their allies, consider, what will our world look like in 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years? Because I intend to be around that long. and I intend to be on the side of whoever is in charge. Whether we once called them thin-blooded or not. Another night we will discuss the Banu Hakim, the Ministry, the Clan of Death, maybe even the Ravnos and the Salubri. But for now, our lesson is at an end.